Hey everyone, it's Aesah, and welcome to my guide on positioning rules and fundamentals. This may seem intimidating at first, however, it's actually quite simple to understand positioning tech and use this in your games to think of positionings on the fly that will help you win rounds. I find a lot of players, even up to Challenger, copy the exact positionings that they see in a guide, but part of the problem with that is if they get even one unit wrong, it can cause problems. In my recent anti-T hex positioning, I've seen several challenger players try to copy it, but they forget that they can't put a unit in the middle of the board, which aggroes the enemy's tank. Furthermore, I've also seen players play like this comp. I always see players put their game plank in the middle, whereas if they're playing this melee comp, the game plank being the itemized melee carry, whereas if they're playing this one, they put the itemized carry on the side. So which one's better, the middle of the side? It's situational. Neither one of these comps has necessarily a reason to do it or not. These are just positioning examples. Same thing with this one. Like you can see our backline is kind of clumped over here. But if we go over here, we can see our backline spread out. So which one's better? There are pros and cons to each. So hopefully by the end of this video, you will know how to use these positioning fundamentals and figure out where to put your board to respond to your opponent's board instead of simply copying a guide. So first, let's talk about the rules of positioning. Knowing how the units walk and aggro is important to know what you want to do. So first, units move one hex at a time simultaneously. Fighters do move a bit faster. Certain units like Trinomir actually walks a bit faster. Additionally, there are augments like Precision and Grace that can make your units move faster, but for the most part, generally you can assume units move one hex at a time simultaneously. This is very important. We'll talk more about this later. Second, melee units only change aggro when walking to their target if another unit becomes closer. You don't have to worry about this that much, but I figured I would include it just so everyone knows how it works. Basically, this allows you to safely, if we saw in the Sonar reroll composition on TFT Academy, they had their front line over here and a Lux over here, right? So what happens if our enemy has melee carries? Maybe like a very scary game plank over here, right? So this game plank walks here, this walks here, this walks here, and now it's a little bit scary because it's kind of close to our Lux, but because it's still not closer to Lux than this Jarvan, this is 1-2 hexes, this is 1-2, but of course, going in a straight line is further away than going in a curve. It will still aggro onto Jarvan. So this is always safe, even if your opponent is positioned like this. They can do something kind of funky with like another melee carry back here. You will not encounter it that often, but they could get to your backline with something like this. It's not used that often, but be aware of it. The main point is to show that against a normal frontline opponent, this always goes to your Jarvan because it never gets closer to the Lux, so it will never switch aggro to Lux randomly here. Next up, tanks taunt within a 1 hex range. So this one I see messed up pretty frequently. It's pretty common for players to have a strong carry in the middle of the board. Let's just take this board for example. Um, Actually, let's use Kindred here. Maybe like Twisted Fate instead of Nautilus. Sure, doesn't really matter too much. The point is, it's not uncommon at all for opponents to have a strong carry in the middle of the board here. So what I frequently see players do is if you're playing the comp that has melee units, they need to be next to a tank. Because let's just say this is a 2-star Kindred with 3 items, and you're playing maybe like a Dyna Renekton comp. You might have a setup that looks like this. You have your Taric tanking one side, you have your Swain tanking one side, and then you have your Diana in the classic Diana spots. You target the enemy corner exactly 4 hexes away. you might have something that looks like this. But the problem is, and maybe you have like a Fiddlesticks or a Shyvana in the front line here. The problem here is neither of these units are tanks. So the Kindred will kill your Renekton. Let's say this guy has items immediately, which is very bad. However, if you have your tanks within 1 hexes of all your carries, then they'll be safe. So this comp also often, the Diana comp oftentimes will have like Nico, who is a tank. Vi is not a tank, very important. She's a fighter. Nico is a tank. You can just see the tag right under their name, Magic Tank. So if you just make sure that each one of your carries has a tank next to it, so maybe you could position something like this. Every single carry has a tank next to it. Now, even if the Kindred is directly in front of your Renekton, it will target the Taric because the tank taunts in a 1 hex range. So I guess like this is also safe. Basically, you just have to make sure you have a tank next to your carries. Very, very, very important. I see this messed up all the time, and yeah, if we swap the Taric and the Taric and the Shyvana here, we can actually just lose the fight immediately if our Renekton dies before, maybe we have a 2-star Taric, a 2-star Swain if our Renekton is targeted first. Finally, sometimes weird things happen. Aggro bugs is announced to be a very high priority for Riot to fix. It's very challenging. I'm not a programmer, but all the programs I know say it's like the hardest thing of all time to fix. TFT is a very old game. In my experience, they can happen. It can be frustrating to lose to them, but personally, I tend to just not play around unexpected aggro interactions because, in my experience, they happen less than once a game. So you're kind of sacrificing too much to play around it. And yeah, I mean, it's very unfortunate if you lose a fight because of it, but just keep that in mind. So now that we know the rules of positioning, let's talk about some examples. So first of all, melee versus melee is something that I see very, very, very frequently underused. Even in like pro circuit games, I think this Tryndamere comp is a really good example where a lot of times you will see people kind of positioned. Let's say we only have 1 strong tank, so maybe we have something that looks like this. A lot of times you'll see someone positioned like this for Tryndamere, and the reason is if we have another tank up here, our opponents have a strong carry in the corner. The Tryndamere walks up, the Yunara kills the Nico pretty quickly, and then it kills the Tryndamere next. So a lot of times you'll see people position like this, and if you are playing Tryndamere, you should generally be doing something like this, because this way the Yunara aggros onto the Sejuani, and you ensure in quotes, most of the time that your Sejuani dies before your Tryndamere, which is what you need. You do this, and your Tryndamere dies before your Sejuani, that can be a game losing. So how can we play around this? Well, as a range unit, there's not much we can do. However, oftentimes we might be playing our own melee carry or 2 range carry. We could do this with a Graves 3 or a Gangplank. So let's just mirror the board so it kind of looks like we're playing against how it might look on the other side. Sure, something like this. So let's say we have a melee carry, maybe we have an itemized Gangplank 3. He's Vanquisher, so you're not usually gonna have Infinity Edge. Crit items become better. Maybe you want some lifesteal. Okay, sure, whatever. He's Slayer, so he has some lifesteal. Now, we want to target his Tryndamere before the Sejuani. Now, this is something that's actually pretty easy to do. So, like, let's say we have our strongest tank here, right? If we default our Gangplank up here, what's going to happen? Because our Nautilus is not going to move, the Sejuani is not going to move, and keep in mind rule number 1, all units move 1 hex at a time. So we walk here, Tryndamere walks here, and he actually targets our Gangplank first, so this is really bad. But this is really easy to avoid if you're kind of paying attention. And again, this is why it's important to know the rules, because most people you will face on ladder, again, even in Challenger, are either not paying that much attention, or they might just not know how to deal with this. And they're just using a default positioning that they kind of use every round. So how do we get our Gangplank target Tryndamere first? We can just put him here. Or even here if we want to have like a melee carry in the corner. For example, maybe we have like a 3-star Draven in our corner. And let's just say, like we'll have some other frontliners here prevent our Gangplank walk this way. I'm just gonna throw in Alawi's for now, but of course this might be Briar, Swain, Loris, whatever. So now you just walk one hex at a time. So Tryndamere walks here, Gangplank walks here, Tryndamere walks here and starts attacking our Nautilus 3, and then our Gangplank will walk up and we kill his Tryndamere before his Sejuani. And this can easily single-handedly win us the fight, or lose us the fight if we position like this and our Gangplank walks up and gets killed first by Tryndamere. So very, very, very important. I think the main point of this video is not to memorize this positioning here. It's that I think everyone watching it is capable of just playing it out step by step. Step 1, Tryndamere walks here, Plank walks here. Step 2, Tryndamere walks here, and Plank walks here. And then you can, once you are able to solve these things on your own, you can abuse people who only know how to do the cookie cutter positionings and win a lot of rounds that you wouldn't otherwise. Yeah, so once again, point is not to memorize this positioning, it's to kind of learn how you can win the matchup based on your opponent's positioning. Obviously, they might swap something last second, that can always happen, but still good to know regardless. A lot of players will not do it. So the next example I want to talk about is how to solve Diana. I think I see a lot of people using kind of the default anti-Diana positions that actually I kind of popularized. So first of all, Diana, let's just read what she does. Targets the farthest unit within 4 hexes. So a lot of times people will put her here or here, which will target exactly 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes into the corner. So these are kind of like the default positionings on your side. It'd be here. But if you leave a gap, Diana has to walk, and then now she no longer has 4 hexes to the corner. Now she'll jump over to this side, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 hexes. So this is like a popular anti-Diana positioning. There's another popular like anti-Diana positioning where you put her back here. So, and then she also has a tank here. And then what happens on frame 1, this unit walks 1 hex. It can be either one of these, doesn't matter. Diana walks 1 hex, and now she's already in the spot to target your carry. So a lot of people I have seen kind of copy the exact positioning that I've posted, but you don't need to do that because it's actually not that hard to solve out where your Diana will go. Let's just pick a completely random hex and kind of solve it out, right? So let's just say our opponent's board, looks like this, and their main carry that we want to kill is right here. Well, how do we get Diana onto this? We can actually do it. It's pretty easy to do because we just want our Diana to start her cast 4 hexes away, which is this one right here. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we want Diana to start her cast here. How do we accomplish that? It's pretty simple, right? We need one of these units to walk on frame 1, and our Diana needs to walk 1 step. So all units move 1 hex simultaneously. So one way we could do it is just position, just do this, right? Pretty simple. Of course, these can just be any frontliners. So this Shen always walks to one of these 2 hexes. It doesn't matter which one. And I guess if it walks this way, Diana can walk this way. So that's one problem. We don't want to leave it up to a 50-50. So one thing we can do is, if we have an Azir soldier, we can put it here. If we have a filler backline unit, that's just kind of a synergy bot. Let's just say like we have this Diana comp might not have any great options, but let's just say we have a Malzahar 1 that we're playing to give our Seraphine 2 with items, Disruptor, right? Let's just say we have this on our board. We can just put this here. So now no matter what, this can walk in either one of these spaces. Now Diana has to walk here no matter what, and then she starts her cast and goes on the Misfortune first cast every single time. except for rule number 4. Sometimes weird things can happen, but more than 19 out of 20 times, it should go on the misfortune first if you just do this positioning. This obviously can be any range unit. You want it to be kind of a useless unit because you don't want your actual important units to be up front where they'll die first. And of course, these can be any tanks on either side, any unit here. So yeah, this is again not too hard to solve out. I think obviously this is an unusual spot, but if your opponent does a unit here in the cubby, for example, and you don't have the positioning that I've posted memorized, you can solve that out too, right? So we want our Diana to start her cast from here, 4 hexes away, 1, 2, 3, 4. So how do we do that? Just something like this. Like this always walks here. This always walks here. Pretty simple. One last example, how to solve swing. I think I do have a guide for positioning around Diana. I also have a guide for positioning around Swain. But depending on where your opponent puts their Swain or where you want to put your Swain to stun your opponent's team, it can be different, right? So I'm just gonna put some random ones, and I'm not even gonna say which one is our main carry. Let's not worry about that for now. Let's just say, for now, our opponent has a Swain here. Now the description is not perfectly, it doesn't say everything, but the way Swain's ability works, he can start the center of his stun, the eye, 2 hexes away from where he is, and it stuns a 3 hex radius. So which units is this enemy Swain going to stun on his cast? Actually, let's mix it up a bit because Swain is frequently in the middle, but we can also see using TFT's frequency, he's actually placed in this spot slightly more in the middle. So let's just do it a little bit of a mix up. Because in my Swain video, I'm pretty sure I recommended middle. So where is Swain going to cast? He can start the center of his cast 2 hexes away and stun in a 3 hex radius. So let's just say, for example, he could start here, and the 3 hex radius would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So it kind of looks like this, right? And of course, all these frontline units will stun as well. So this would stun these 6 units. Is that he's going to prioritize the largest clump? Very important. Like he's never just going to aim right here. If he did, we could also see like what would it stun, right? If it put it right here, 1, 2, 3, it would only stun 5 units, right? So Swain targets largest clump, so he'll never do this. Why stun these 5 units? We can stun this unit in addition for free. So what about if he puts his eye here? Was he stunned? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So now he's also stunning 6 units, right? But note they're different 6 units. If I did this hex, it stuns the corner Caitlyn here. If I do here, it stuns the one on this side. So in this setup, it is a 50-50 whether this Caitlyn gets stunned or whether this Caitlyn gets stunned, because both of them are in a 6 unit largest clump. They're tied for the largest clump. So 50-50 which one of these gets stunned. So why is this important? Well, this is important because what if we now, instead of having all these Caitlyn's, what if one of these is our carry, right? So what if one of these is like our 2-star Yunara with 3 items, and the rest of these are just filler units? Like this is a 1-star Jin, like a 1-star Ari, like a 1-star Senna with no items. We want to make sure our Yunara is not being stunned by Swain. So how can we do that? We can just kind of go through this exercise, right? So in this setup, it's a 50-50 that Yunara gets stunned. But what if just this unit over here? Now, the largest clump, if we do this hex, it's, wait, is this right? 1, 2, 3. This is 7. Oh yeah, this is 7 units. So this will stun our left side. This doesn't do anything actually. So this doesn't actually work, which is a good demonstration, right? Like I tried something out and it doesn't work. So let's say, what if I'll just put this over here? Well, now we can see that our Yunara is actually never gonna get stunned because the largest clump is going to be right here. It's gonna stun 7 units this way, whereas anything that contains the Yunara, the eye would have to go here. So let's look at that first, right? Like let's say the eye goes here. This is the only way to reach the Yunara. This is going to stun a total of 6 units. There's 8 units total, so it's not hitting 2, so it's stunning 6. However, if we go over here, we can see that it's actually going to stun all 7 of these. So now, in this setup, we ensure that our Yunara is never stunned by Swain. And you can see that the Jin up here is necessary, right? Because if we don't have the Jin up here, if we have him here, let's just use the same setup. Now, both of these are 6 units. This is 6 units, and then this is also 6 units. So we have to move this Jin up, and again, this is a filler unit. We don't care that much if our Jin is a little bit more exposed. It's much, much, much more important that our Yunara is not stunned. So you can solve these out on your own, basically, and you can also do it for your opponents for positioning your Swain, thinking about how to stun them. Basically, this obviously is a bit time consuming for Swain. It's unlikely you'll be able to solve something out like this precisely in the middle of a game. However, once you know how to do it, you can learn how to do it outside of a game, and then you will be able to replicate these things during the game if you kind of already know. A lot of the patterns are very similar. Many of your opponents will use the same positioning, and yeah, just knowing what the units do and how to take advantage of that fact is very important. So we looked at 3 examples with Melee, Diana, and Swain. That's going to wrap it up for this video on positioning, rules, and fundamentals. If you have any comments or questions, let me know in the Discord, and thanks for watching.